Welcome back to New Day, and time now for us to talk about an issue that is dominating public discourse. Now, Dr. Bawumia is asking the Finance Minister, Mr. Setekwe, to resign. His reasons are that he has breached a section of the Bank of Ghana Act. Exactly how did this happen, and what is it that has gone wrong? This morning we'll try and take a look at that, as government has responded saying that it has not done anything wrong and that whatever transaction that had gone on is in line with rules and regulations. My guest in the studio is a member of Parliament for Boase West, and he sits on Parliament's Finance Committee. Kwaku, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So this $250 million issue has been dominating public discourse. Now, let's quickly look at government's argument that it has the GIF fund, the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, and that, in fact, it allows for monies that are borrowed on the international market to be put into that fund. And also the fact that apart from that, other sources, including the ABFA, all those revenue can go into the fund. And so what it has done, taking $250 million from the Bank of Ghana into the GIF fund at UBA isn't wrong. That's government's argument.
Yes, we've all heard that from the Finance Minister and other spokespeople of government. Of course, they are not going to concede that what they have done is wrong. And I think what has happened is not just wrong. I think it is motivated by a desire to benefit illegitimately from public funds.
How?
To start with, this euroband money was money we went for because we needed it. If government considered that money borrowed in 2014 was not needed, then the first point is that you do not go and take a loan, 1 billion, at an unbelievable rate of 10.75% per annum, at a time other African countries were borrowing at less than 6%, less than 5%.
What would Ivory Coast had borrowed at that rate?
Exactly, because our economy was in difficulty. Investors said, we will not lend to you unless you give us very high rate. So we got 10.75. And perhaps the defense of government was that I need the money desperately, so I have to make do. So government borrowed that money. The money, we are now told, has been sitting there idle. And therefore, we needed to do something with the money.
That is prudent financial management.
Prudence means that you wait till you need the money before you go and borrow. You don't go and borrow the money, be paying interest on it. The money will now be sitting there. Then you purport to now invest the money so that you can redeem some of your losses. Now, but let's even look at the attempt to redeem losses, whether it is sincere and whether it is right. The Bank of Ghana Act, Section 53, is clear that if government or government departments have money, has money in forex, in dollars, in euro, in forex, in foreign exchange, then that money has to be held by the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana Act, Section 53, is so clear on this. What it means is that if government wants to give money to anybody in Ghana, and the money is sitting at the Bank of Ghana in forex terms, the money has to be ceded to them in cedis.
Right. That's according to the Act.
That's the Act. And the wisdom is that we do not want people to be transacting business in forex. Otherwise, you run your own currency down. So that is the wisdom. So for the Finance Minister to say that $250 million in dollar terms was transferred to UBA was unlawful. It's against the law, and it should never happen again. It should never have happened. I think it ought to be reversed. Then leave that. That is the first level of wrong that has happened. For me, what is more frightening is government put the money with UBA. He deposits the money with UBA. And then UBA now lends the money to government.
That is an assumption.
That is a fact. The Finance Minister, the response,
is lending money to government?
Yes. The Finance Minister says, well, UBA is a bank. That's the response of the Finance Minister, that the UBA is a bank and there is nothing wrong with government borrowing from banks.
But he did not say government has borrowed from the bank.
No, but also that when it was put to him, and I listened to him very clearly, that why is UBA lending to you money when you have money sitting in UBA's account? You have money sitting in an account with UBA. And his response was that, but what is wrong with government borrowing from a commercial?
So you assume that government is borrowing?
It is not an assumption because we know those who are buying government bonds, that is who are borrowing, who are lending to government. We know them. UBA is one of them.
All right.
And they themselves have not denied. Nobody has denied this. So the question is, if government borrows money in 2014 and it is at a rate of 10.75, and we were compelled to borrow that money from the international capital market because we needed the money badly. Now the money comes to sit in our accounts, and we now say that, oh, we are not really ready to use the money yet. So GIF is not in shape to put the money to the development of infrastructure projects. So we will go and put the money in an account with UBA. If it turns out that government needs money badly, the most prudent thing to do is for government to tell GIF that, look, I get this money to you, but you appear not to be ready to use it. I am recalling part back or all of that money so that we put it in other government expenditures. On paper, government will still have to see that money to you. What government ought not to do is to go around to that same bank, UBA, our bank that belongs to our Nigerian brothers. It's a bank that I have nothing against, but it's a bank that belongs to our Nigerian brothers. You go there and you now borrow. Instead of going to say, give me back the money we deposited here, you now borrow at 20%. So what really has happened is that government money goes round. It goes around GIF, it goes around UBA supposedly, and it comes back to government. And then government has to pay interest on it. Now that is for me, that is the most critical point Dr. Bawumia is raising. That this attempt to borrow from UBA, money UBA would ordinarily not have been able to raise and lend to government. But now they're able to do that because government has gone to give them money so they can lend to government, and government pays interest is wrong. And it is important to point out that, look, this arrangement and this strategy to benefit illegitimately from public funds is a well-known phenomenon in Nigeria.
Okay, so that's how you
for a long time.
It.
Let me put this point across, and because I would want people to verify. The same way judgment debt became an issue in Ghana, this strategy where government gives the money to banks and then government goes to borrow from the same banks and pays interest to those banks is something that has happened over and over again in Nigeria. And we are now beginning to see it in Ghana. I think Ghanaians must rise up. We must let state managers understand that these things that on the face appear to be defensible, that, well, to start with, as a minister, I can put money anywhere. So I put it with UBA. As a government, we can borrow from any bank. So we borrow from UBA. So on the face of it, it appears that legally government is not doing anything wrong. But we know what is happening. Okay. But just to conclude on this point, in respect of this particular movement of money from the central bank to the UBA, if it had gone in cedi terms, then the issue would have been why government is now borrowing from the person that has government money. But the added issue that has come up is whether going forward, government is now allowed to be making payments where it has to make payments, whether government is allowed to be making those payments in forex. I think it's unlawful, and this is the time to stop this. So
government agreement that it has a right to put monies that are borrowed from the international market into this fund, you think it's not right?
Yes, government has the right to put money into this fund, but I'm saying that if government wants to do so, the Bank of Ghana must convert the money into cedis before you put it in that fund, because the money is going to be used in Ghana. If it is put in the account and GIF, let's remember that it is when this matter came up that we were told that, oh, that money with UBA is GIF money. That's when we were told. But let's even grant that it's really GIF money. If really GIF wants to make procurements or wants to use money that require the use of forex, the rules are that they now apply to the Bank of Ghana that for this specific reason we need forex, and the Bank of Ghana will give them forex the same way other traders do. The idea that the Bank of Ghana can transfer dollars into the accounts of an entity like GIF is unlawful. It should never have happened. It should never happen again.
Would you therefore suggest that, for instance, one key thing that government argues about is that this fund is sitting there idle? Now they claim, the argument is that when we invested it, we've made some interest. So for me, it is prudent management.
To begin with, why should you go 2014 to borrow from the international market at a very high repayment rate? And the excuse at the time was that we have to do this because we need the money badly. And then 2 years on, government is saying that the money is idle. Does it not sound strange to you? So we now say that the money is idle. The money is idle, so we will invest it. How are we going to invest it? We go and put the money, we go and deposit the money with UBA. Now, it is important to state that we are not very clear in our minds what that was. The money that was put in UBA, whether it was a fixed deposit, because we are told just this morning, I engaged the Deputy Minister of Communications in one media house, and what he said was that the money was put there on call. That is to say, it's not an investment.
Right.
It's like in a current account. So anytime government or GIF needs the money, they can
just go there and pick it.
If that is the case, then the profit they are talking about, where did it come from? Because when you put money at the bank and it's on call, you don't get that much profit on it. But let's even grant that they have invested and they've got profit. What is that investment? That money has been lent to government. The same government, and government has paid interest on it to UBA. And now GIF is saying that I have made profit. It's like cutting your tongue and using it for fried rice. That is not consuming any meat. Really, what has happened beyond the exchanges is that I think this transaction was motivated by a desire to benefit illegitimately from public funds. I support Dr. Bawumia's call that Parliament should look into these matters for the purposes of establishing that going forward, we just do not want this to happen again. And I keep saying that as a people, government will come and go. If these things come up and we do not take steps to correct them, it will happen in subsequent governments, because the culture seems to have been established that this is a legitimate way to do business. If I am government, all I have to do is to transfer money to a certain bank. The bank now has money to lend. Then me, government, I would go and borrow from them and pay interest to them. And then that interest that is paid to that private company, people would go under the cover of darkness and share the loot. I think this is dangerous, and Parliament must establish an inquiry into this, so that I think it is clear to me, and it should be clear to anybody who wants to be honest about these matters, that the things that have happened are wrong. But for the purposes of taking away the debate, and I hate that this thing has turned into debate, it's right, it's wrong. It ought to be established by somebody that going forward, if government, you do not go and put your money in some bank and then you go and borrow from that bank, that is wrong.
And so, for instance, when you talk about the provisions in Section 21(2) of the Financial Administration Act that makes provision for investment of public monies in securities, some have said that, well, if indeed that is the situation, then government has done nothing wrong.
Yes, and you see, it is because the minister and government have even not been forthright in giving us detailed information. If they say the GIF fund has now made profit, and I know for a fact that government has borrowed money from UBA, the government has paid interest to UBA. Now, if the profit they are talking about is the interest government has paid to GIF, a department of government, then I don't know what kind of profit it is. When you read the Section 21 of the Financial Administration Act, What it says is that the minister may cause public monies to be invested on behalf of the government in the purchase of securities for such periods and on such terms as the minister thinks fit, except that public monies may not be invested in government securities. So really, what the law is saying is that government department, I cannot give you government department money. And then you lend the money to me, then I pay you interest. It's no.
In this case, the Ghana Investment Infrastructure.
Exactly.
Lending back the money to government.
Exactly, lending the money back to government. You can do that. The law says you can't do that. But you see, the government has been very cunning in its responses. It is in one vein pretending that, oh, that investment was done by UBA. If that investment was done by UBA, then it means the money is actually for UBA. So it means government perhaps invested the money with UBA, and that is UBA that is paying interest to government. Is that the case? We are not told. What we are told is that the money is in UBA's account and it is money on call. That is to say, anytime government needs it or GIF needs it, the money could be recalled. In that case, you don't earn interest. So what government is saying is very clumsy, and the simplification that, oh, the money is sitting idle, so government is investing in order to make some money on it. The two questions that we ought to be asking is, if government thought it didn't need the money, why did it go for the money at such a high interest rate? That's the first point. The second point, granted that government has now borrowed the money from the capital market, and government says it is investing. If it is genuine investment, you invest the money in, say, some fixed deposit with a private bank, so that the money government will be making will be making that money from private banks. If that GIF money has now been lent to government, they've invested it in lending to government, and the profit they are talking about is interest government has paid to them, then you ask yourself, who are we deceiving? Look, this whole thing, right, I think it's bad, and Parliament should go into these matters and establish each point along the way, the laws that have been broken, but putting the laws aside, the issue of financial prudence, whether we ought to be taking money at a time we don't need it, and whether when we take the money, we should be investing it in lending to government, lending it to itself, so that the money we took through the eurobond, we are paying 10.75% in dollar terms to the original investors. The same money has now gone round, part of that money has now gone round and returned to government, and we are paying interest again, 20% per annum in CD terms. I think this is scandalous. And really, the finance minister, I think, ought to resign. But we can, if he will not, that's not really my beef. In the end, the public purse must be protected. And this way of siphoning public money has to be stopped.
Okay.
And that is why I think Parliament ought to go into these matters and to establish that going forward, we just don't want this to happen again. And
so, for instance, when the accusations are that, well, these monies are being diverted there for electoral purposes, and government say, well, that money cannot be misapplied because it is all part of public funds, and that public funds that sit with the Bank of Ghana and public funds that sit with other banks or financial institutions are still regarded as public funds, and it cannot be misapplied.
Sometimes people deliberately pretend that they don't understand accusations being made. I think the point Dr. Bawumia was making is this, that government money, we will put it in a certain bank. That when we put it in that bank, we will find a way of borrowing from that bank so that we pay interest to that bank. When you have paid that interest to that bank, that interest you have paid becomes private money, isn't it?
Right.
Belonging to the bank. Well, if I am government, I gave you the money, I came and put the money in your account so that you have liquidity. I am the same government that made a decision to borrow from you. So the private money you have got, you ought to put some of it in our campaign. It seems very plausible to me. I think that...
But that's also, again, an assumption.
No, you see, there's a saying that when there's an animal walking by, and that animal bleats, the cry of that animal sounds like a sheep, and walks like a sheep, and smells like a sheep, then it must be a sheep. Look, what is the justification? If you look at all the wrongs that have happened, You think people are just mistaken? That people just don't know that you cannot put Forex into an account like that? That people don't know that we have money at GIF. If government is pressed for money, we can recall part of that money? You think people didn't know that? That you think people made a decision that let that money sit there? Then we will go and borrow from the same bank and give them interest. You think all these things just happen and people don't know that it is wrong? It's no value addition. It's government money going round and in the process providing opportunity to pay money to a private bank. You think nobody knows this? And the question some of us are asking and the issues we're interrogating is that what is motivating all these wrongs?
Mr. Tekpe says he's working within the law. I mean, he has said it, that the law allows him to do that.
I've pointed it. Mr. Tekpe, I don't even want to personalize. Government, in my opinion, has violated many laws in this matter, but I have been focusing very much on the financial prudence element because that is where I suspect the corruption is. And the question I ask again is, yes, you can always say that I have done nothing wrong. But if you ask, what is the benefit? They say, oh, we invested it, we have money. Of course, to the person who does not read well, if government has invested it and has made some profit, it must be a good thing. The question is that which profit? The profit they have made from government. And it is when you put all these together that I get clearly convinced in my mind that this is a scam. It was a carefully calculated strategy playing around the laws to benefit illegitimately from public funds. And as I indicated, in respect of this, I'm suspicious because of the circumstances surrounding it. But this strategy of government putting money into a private bank so that a private bank would have liquidity to lend money to government, which is something fueling our suspicion, is something that is well known in Nigeria. The same way Ghana, we are very familiar with judgment debt and government officials saying, well, take government to court. I am the person who will go and defend government.
Right.
I will jumble up the case, then you will win. When you win, government will pay money to you, and then we'll find a way of sharing the money. The same way we are familiar with judgment debt, and people can always defend, oh, but the thing went to court. It was a court that ruled. And it's always possible to say, well, we have not violated any law. The man took us to court. We went to court and we lost. You go and look at how we lost, and it may be that we did not even file defense. It may be that we went there and pretended that we were wrong in the first place so that the private man will have his way. And on the face of it, it looks like, and that's why people keep telling us, oh, but the Woyome money, it was a court that, but when you go into it, even when the court says, so the long and short of the point I'm making is that state managers, and here I'm not just thinking about this government, we are building a nation forever. And state managers would always, bad people in government would always find clever ways of playing around the laws and stealing our money. And when some of these things begin to come up, as a country, we should stand up strongly against it. If it entrenches, other governments will come and there will be bad people in government to repeat it. And that's why we should stand up right now.
How is Parliament able to deal with this?
Well, Parliament could commission an investigation into this so that every point along the way,
transaction process,
the path the money traveled from euroband to government Bank of Ghana, from Bank of Ghana to UBA, from UBA back to government, the payment of interest, why we took money at the time we now realize we didn't need it, why we must investigate all that and make some establishments. That one, for instance, we may well come up with a law that if you don't need the money, don't go and borrow. Because in the end, it's a taxpayer that pays it. So if you don't need the money, don't go to the capital market and borrow at such a high repayment interest rate simply because you need the money badly. And then subsequently, you tell us that the money is sitting idle, so you have to invest. The investment is not investing in the private sector and making money. The investment is putting money in a particular bank and borrowing from the money and paying interest so that that becomes a profit.
Right.
We must trace this path and perhaps make laws that says that you can't do this, that if government's money sits in a private bank, government is not allowed to borrow from that bank. We ought to be making those laws. Otherwise, trust me, going forward, we're doomed, because this would be a new path to steal the people's money.
Kweku, I'm grateful for your time this morning.
Thank you.